Hey, what's up guys? Everything Apple Pro here. Welcome back to your weekly episode of Apple Leaks and News. Got a lot of iPhone 12 stuff, including some exclusives with Max Weinbach. The picture that's being painted right now is a lot different than the one we anticipated, but there are some exciting features in the works, and if anything, iOS 14 has made me even more excited for what's to come. What an amazing release. I can't wait for the next beta. And yes, hidden features are coming. So sorry. I've just been really occupied with Phone Rebel. It's become a much bigger part of my life than I originally anticipated. And thank you guys. Honestly, I'm getting so much amazing feedback. I'm sorry for this release. We're still rolling out the Rebel series, but it's being rolled out in chunks depending on model number, more being shipped tonight and all next week. Wanted to say thank you for the support, guys, and the understanding. You could not have chosen a worse time to release. Also, Gen 2 Rebel series, which is our closed case. We're still developing the open case, but wanted to share the progress there, refining it, honestly looking amazing. So excited for the next gen. All right, let's get into those leaks. Now, more and more product listings are showing up for iPhone 12 related accessories, cases, screen protectors, and even these dummies. So originally shared by Sunny Dixon, we have a good clear look at what the square housing will look like for this year's iPhones, very similar to that of the iPad Pro. Now the cameras are the old layout. They're slightly larger and protrude a little bit more. It looks odd. I really hope it's not like this. Again, I hope we're wrong on this one and that Apple did not share the final camera orientation with the accessory makers, nor the notch, which again still remains in that large format. Taking a closer look at those dummies, you can tell that the lens rings themselves are slightly thinner than that of the 11 Pro Max. On the 12 Pro Max model, they protrude far more. It's very strange. And I've got some iPhone 12 exclusives with Max Weinbach. So first off, a production update on ProMotion, the 120 Hz high refresh rate display. Max Weinbach's source says things so far are looking good. 120 Hz is still on the menu. The iPhone 12 Pro Max has passed 5 out of 5 hardware tests. The smaller model, the iPhone 12 Pro 6.1 inch, has not. It's only passed 4 out of 5 tests. This is because it's using a altered panel due to the sizing. Things are a little bit more condensed, but they believe that Apple can fix it in time, although it will cost them more, and Apple at this point is trying to decide whether or not it's worth it. So we may see a staggered 120 Hz release. That's one option. Apple may choose to place it only on the 6.7 inch model. This is speculation, or Apple could just axe the entire feature altogether, but things are looking good so far. There's still time for Apple to remedy this. So as of now, 120 Hz is still happening. And Ice Universe does confirm this with his tweet, essentially saying 120 Hz is happening on this year's iPhone 12 Pro models. And more from Max Weinbach. So him and his source were bored and decided to tear down into the camera application in iOS 14, not in the leaked build. This is the official build. And they found direct reference in a string of text to new video modes potentially coming to the iPhone 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max. These video modes are 4K at 120 frames per second and 4K at 240. That's simply crazy. Current iPhones are limited to 4K 60 or 1080p at 240 frames per second. So this is definitely in a completely different territory. We know that major camera upgrades are coming to this year's iPhones, but I'm sure the Apple A14 has a lot to do with this as well. Potentially, Apple could be interlacing frames to achieve this frames per second effect at 4K. I mean, that's seriously out of this world when it comes to smartphone capability. Going further, Max Weinbach asked his source about this, and they were able to determine that yes, Apple is internally testing these modes for upcoming iPhones, likely reserved for the higher end 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max. Max Weinbach also reports that Apple's marketing strategy for this year's iPhones will be unusually aggressive, essentially boasting about not just the design like in recent years, but also bring new features more into focus. I'm curious what you guys think about the new icons that Apple introduced in macOS Big Sur, and if they were to be used in iOS. Would you guys like this direction? It's not necessarily skeuomorphic, it's more neumorphic, so modern plus skeuomorphic. I personally think the design language on these icons is all over the place, even though I like that it's new. I don't know how I'd feel about it being on the iPhone. And Twitter leaker Mr. White has shared with us our first look at the iPhone 12 power adapter, potentially. It's 20 watts. It's 2 watts more versus the current 11 Pro Max power adapter, so potentially we may get slightly more advanced fast charging. Still USB-C, of course. Also has shared a clear engineering prototype version. Unlikely that this would ship, even though it does look pretty dang cool. A frosted look inside the power adapter. Kind of reminds you of the old iMac G3s. Meanwhile, Barclays is reporting that this year's iPhones will not come with EarPods and may not even come with a power adapter, which I'm inclined to believe is false because of this new 20-watt power adapter leak. I hope it's false. I mean, yes, Apple would save some money and potentially bring the cost of the iPhone down, but you'd have to spend that money anyways to get a power adapter. And some great news for the iPhone 12. Wedbush analysts are now claiming Apple is back on track to launch the iPhone 12 lineup in September. Due to normalization of the supply chain ahead of expectations, they're now back in the driver's seat, ready to launch this iPhone sooner than expected. Previously it was October, November, now back to September. And Wedbush analysts still believe there will be no EarPods in the box with this year's iPhones, potentially to save you some money, lower the price of the iPhones, but also entice you to purchase AirPods later on. And a fishy leak from a completely new source, which is claiming that Apple will be launching non-5G iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 Max models, which will start at a cheaper price. So the iPhone 12, instead of starting at $649, as John Prosser predicted, a non-5G variant would start at $549, and the iPhone 12 Max would start at $649 instead of $749. Now, would Apple do something like this? We've heard previously that there could be potentially non-5G variants of the iPhone. This is the first time we're hearing about this since. It sounds suspicious. It would undermine the entire 5G release. And there's more evidence pointing to the fact that Apple will be using the X60 Qualcomm modem in this year's iPhone, not next year's. And yes, we want this one. It's 5 nanometers more efficient, faster download speeds as it combines sub 6 gigahertz and millimeter wave in one download speed. This Weibo leaker is claiming that latest engineering prototypes have passed multiple tests and saying it's looking good that the X60 modem may happen this year. And regarding the future with 5G, PC Mag has a wonderful take here. So the new App Clips feature, which is essentially a bite-sized preview of an application under 10 megabytes, may become more and more prevalent as time goes on between 2021 to 23. As 5G ramps up, we may see less and less on-device processing with applications. Instead, many applications will be run in the cloud and your device runs as minimal amount of code from those apps unless absolutely necessary. And this will, of course, only be possible with 5G. And we've got some updates on Apple's A14 processor. So production is set to begin here after the Chinese Dragon holiday next week. There will be 15 billion transistors, over 8.5 billion on the Apple A13. And as Twitter leaker Love to Dream mentions, this will be the year of the Apple A14. It's going to be a monumental upgrade. And a new take by Anan Tech claims that the Apple A14 may include new features not originally accounted for, making this a much more monumental release than we expected. I wouldn't even pretend to understand what these features are, but essentially ARM version 9 with scalable vector extension 2. If anyone out there knows what that means, it's apparently a pretty big deal and a huge step up for mobile processing. Also an interesting leak from that Weibo leaker, this year's iPhone 12 will be the last iPhone, the first and last iPhone to feature a 7-piece plastic element lens, and that Apple is already working on 8-piece lenses going forward. The more lenses, the more optical clarity, and the less distortions there are on various objects when taking pictures. And Twitter leaker Love to Dream is essentially suggesting that the Apple Watch Series 7 will be arriving in a matching color to this year's iPhone. That new color would be navy blue, as rumored by Max Weinbach originally, and then others. I think that would be an awesome combo. The last time we had something like this was on the iPhone XS, when Apple released the watch and the phone in matching gold colors. We didn't get that with Midnight Green on the 11 Pro, but it looks like Apple will be going back to that matching color scheme on this year's iPhone and Apple Watch. Also, Apple Rumors Leaks, who previously reported that the Apple Watch Series 7 may be moving on to 5G, is claiming that this will no longer be happening. And it makes sense that Apple would be adding that to a smaller device. It just seems too soon for that sort of miniaturization. Ming-Chi Kuo is also reporting that AirPods 3, which have been previously rumored by multiple sources, will now be arriving in the first half of 2021 with a design very similar to that of AirPods Pro. So Apple may be getting rid of the iconic AirPods design. They'll all be sort of in-ear now, one with noise cancellation, one without, potentially, and even more differentiating features. And the Elec is reporting that new iPad Pros could potentially arrive in late 2020, but more likely to happen in early 2021. These will feature a mini LED display, as rumored by multiple sources. And Twitter leaker Apple Rumors Leaks does report that this new iPad Pro will arrive with a new U1 chip, which was notably missing in the last iPad Pro refresh. And of course, Apple did announce their intentions to switch over the Mac line to ARM processors within the course of the next 2 years. We're still likely to see an ARM MacBook this fall. Ming-Chi Kuo does report that the new iMac 24-inch is still likely to launch this fall. It was simply pushed back along with all the other hardware that Apple didn't announce. And Ming-Chi Kuo reports that this new iMac refresh will likely be Intel-based. Apple still plans to support Intel for many years to come and will have many Intel refreshes in the course of the next 2 years. An interesting patent has surfaced regarding Apple Glass, one where you can replace the arms which rest on your ears with different modules. Potentially, some will have more functionality. It could be an aesthetic purpose, showing you that Apple is exploring many opportunities when it comes to Apple Glass. Those are slated for 2023 release. All right, guys, that's the latest Apple leaks and news. Stay tuned for more iOS 14 videos. Peace.